Hello and a warm welcome to the Irish Angle, our weekly show looking back at all the big stories in Irish and international racing, basically. And I've got the usual crew with me this week, Johnny Nagle and Emma Ward. There you are, put them back. Right, Emma, first off, tell me about you. You went to Liverpool last week to go and see your great team play. That was fun. Was it against Man City?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Brilliant. It was my first time over there this year. We'd been over last year. My sister had been over a couple of times already this season, but yeah, atmosphere incredible. And I was just glad that we didn't end up going to Everton on Saturday because with that being cancelled, I saw a poor fan flew all the way over from Australia on Saturday and to go to see the Everton Liverpool match, and it was cancelled. So we were kind of lucky in that regard, I suppose. We just avoided Storm Dara, but yeah, no, it was brilliant. Going to try and get back over again now before the end of the season. But yeah, we're definitely going well at the moment.
Yeah, I saw some incredible scenes on social media in Liverpool on Saturday of people being blown up and down the street. It really was some storm we got, Johnny. Did it affect you?
No, my young lad actually was getting christened on Saturday in Dublin, and my parents were coming up. And my father, like, he's 81 years of age, and he wouldn't have done a journey like that now in a good while. He's it's been difficult for him, so he came up, and I was really privileged that they could make it because not only like obviously had he the getting on in years and wouldn't have a journey like that, but like there were trees down around our area at home, which is kind of the east of Galway. We got away with it, but yeah, this is like we've gone on about this before, but this is a sign of where we're at with the climate and that we're going to get more volatile events. And I do wonder as a country how prepared we are for it. But 400,000 customers were out of electricity, and the ESB have a hell of a job to do. And unfortunately, this is going to be more common going forward.
Yeah, and of course we lost 3 meetings in the UK on Saturday. We had Aintree, Chepstow, and Wolverhampton all off, but the Irish stuff survived. Moving on, we'll move on with loads of stuff to go through. So I'm going to move on to something that I saw during the week that's of significant interest, I think, for most people, certainly those breeding, buying, and selling horses, is HRI have announced a new 3-year-old National Hunt Academy hurdle race series. So basically what this means is you'll have 3-year-olds running over hurdles, and if they win one, in this academy series, they're still able to go on and run in bumpers and maiden hurdles. And if they're non-winners in these races, they can still get a hunter cert and run in point to points. This matches up with a UK series which has started called Junior Hurdlers, which has been running since 2022. And by all accounts, it'll be the same for both sets of horses in those. They'll still qualify for maiden hurdles and bumpers in both Ireland and the UK. So it's a bit of a change here, Johnny, is it?
Yeah, it's definitely something I feel that I think that the sort of philosophy behind this is a good idea, and it's kind of, I guess, trying to introduce horses to the regular sphere that isn't obviously come through the point to point sphere. Now I know that I think the trainers were sent a message from sort of the head of the IRTA, which the IRTA, the Trainer Association, has aware of concerns regarding concessions, and they apparently the trainers or the head of the trainers and did a number of concerns regarding the conditions of these races, and that HRI did not consult in this matter with a working group of 14 IRTA members. I don't know, the National Hunt sphere is a bit strange at the moment because horses are just being snapped up out of point to points for huge money, and it's kind of hard for the small trainer to have any real chance of falling on these horses. And maybe this will make it a little bit different. I mean, the whole point of pointing for me, I'm just wondering, like, you're training a horse to be absolutely like going to basically train to the end of his life to win a 4-year-old maiden, and then he goes back and runs in bumpers, hurdles, and he might run over fences for another 2 or 3 years. So I'm kind of not really sure where it's going in terms of points and how it's become so commercial in the 4-year-old maiden stage, where anything, as we've said in this before, the horse is bought before he's even run pretty much, and it's a smaller and smaller concentration of owners. But this is something that I feel there's definite merit to this. Definite merit to this in terms of what it's trying to do and to educate horses before they kind of join the I suppose the professional ranks. Now there is maybe some issues around like what races are eligible to run in afterwards. We'll get to that as well.
Yeah, and Emma, what about yourself? You're from a basically a point to point yard, largely with your dad. This is going to change the whole point to point scene completely. Is it? Certainly, people buying store horses for point to pointers, they'd be looking to maybe run them in these 3-year-old hurdles. You get them out of your way a year earlier, get your profit, and move on.
Yeah, look, I suppose the point scene has like changed completely anyway in the last 10 years, I suppose, really. It's a totally different game now, but it's going to have massive kind of knock-on effects, and I think it's probably for the good, because like you're thinking about it like for as a national hunt breeder or a national hunt pinhook or whatever, like it's such a long wait for a return on a horse, like compared to the flat, like a flat foal, you sell it as a yearling, that's it. Whereas like a national hunt horse, you keep it as a 3-year-old, and then it'll probably race as 4. Whereas now, like I'd imagine the sales companies are going to have to look at their big store sales. And I know last year they kind of announced that the Derby sale is going to have in the part 2 a specific section for 2-year-olds. I know 2-year-olds have gone through those sales before, but it would be kind of a rarity to have a 2-year-old in there. Whereas now, like you'd imagine, 2-year-olds are going to be a massive part of that sale if this series takes off. I don't know that they announce how many races there's going to be, but I can imagine they'll be quite well supported. It's kind of something I think the industry had been calling for quite a while in discussion groups, and HRI were kind of always saying, if the industry wants it, we'll provide these races. And they were introduced in England, I think 2 or 3 years ago, was it? And I think at the start maybe the uptake wasn't great, but I to be honest, I'm definitely behind the idea. It's kind of following the French style, and kind of like what Johnny was saying, it might give a 3-year-old a nice quiet introduction, like you were saying, like they can run in a maiden hurdle or a bumper afterwards. If they win one, they can go to England and run in a novice race. They can't go back to point if they had won, but if they haven't won, they can go back to point as far as I know. So it'll be a nice kind of maybe quieter way to introduce them. And like there's plenty of people around the country now breaking 2-year-olds anyway. So I think it's probably the way it was always going to go, following that French style. And yeah, it'll be interesting, running for prize money in those kind of races. How many races there'll be will be interesting, but I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, and probably good news for the Irish breeders.
Just on that, Vinny, as well, like Emma kind of touched on something there, like the economics of breeding a store horse or breeding a national hunt horse now to race are so bad. Like, so if you're breeding a national hunt horse and you're waiting for him to run, hopefully at 4, maybe at 5, the prospect of the horse getting injured or badly injured is very high. Prize money is really poor, and training fees and everything has gone up. So you're paying all this money to if you own the horse before he goes into training, you're paying all this money. Then you have to pay all this money for training fees. Might be 20-25 grand a year. There's, as I said, there's a high risk of injury. There's a very little chance that he'll actually be much good. So the economics of having a national hunt horse at the moment are very bad. And I think this is kind of some step towards trying to make it more amenable.
Yeah, you'd wonder as well, will they be looking for more precocious types? Will there be horses they'll be buying off the flat, basically 2-year-olds off the flat and 3-year-olds off the flat, more so than national hunt bred horses? Hard to know how that.
But flat horses won't be allowed to run on it if you have one on the flat, unless they didn't run. Okay. Yeah, no, flat horses won't be allowed to run, so that'll take that away from it. So that will be something.
Still looking at flat breeding, perhaps, but anyway. Moving on, another interesting thing from last week. Leopardstown have announced the Dublin Racing Festival ticket only. So we know it's been, well, they got a great crowd last year. They got 20,000 the first day on the Saturday. So, or this year it was as such. But next February, what do you make of that, Emma? Ticket only, is that a good move?
I don't know. Like, I suppose it is in a way, but who I'd always feel sorry with, like the GAA have kind of gone the same way. Like you have to go online to buy tickets, but like the old people going racing, like I know a lot of them will have relations and kids and stuff who can buy them tickets. But if you're a 70-year-old there living on your own and you go racing every weekend, like you might know how to get online to buy your ticket, and that's like, to be apart from that, I don't really see much of a problem with it. But that's kind of who I always think about when all these things are kind of changing online. Like, and I think like the average age of maybe a race goer in Ireland is probably in that older generation. So I hope it's not going to affect anyone like that. But really, apart from that, I don't really see too much issues with it. But yeah, that's kind of who I think about, like the way that ticketing's going now. The GAA as well. It's another thing, like older people, like it's finding it harder. Even going to like local county finals and stuff like that, you have to buy your tickets online for some of those games, which I don't think is the right way to do it. I think there should be a bit more accessible to maybe the people who don't have as much access to the internet as the younger generations.
Yeah, the old fair weather punters are going to get a bit put out by it, aren't they? The ones who'd be sitting at home on the Saturday morning wondering, how will I go or not? Gee, because it looks like it's going to pour rain. I'm not going to bother. I'll go to the pub instead or whatever. They're going to be in trouble, Johnny, are they?
Yeah, I suppose so. In fairness, Leopardstown's jumps, the attraction of the jumps race in Leopardstown is really enduring. The Dublin Race Festival has been an immense success. It's not easy to get people racing nowadays, and Leopardstown's flat offering in the summer has absolutely collapsed really since I started going years ago. Anyway, they're really not getting crowds at all. Betting ring is dead. but the jumps is doing well. I'm kind of with them on this. I can see where it could be a bit of a problem for older people. I don't really see why you can't. I'm not a big fan as well of shops that have it's card only, and you have to. There should absolutely be an option to pay cash in these events, because it's my right to kind of basically for people and my bank not to know what I'm doing with my cash at any day. I don't have to have everything recorded. And I'm not sure what the reason is behind this, but I'd echo what everyone was saying about elderly people. A lot of them are just not online and don't have a smartphone.
Yeah, when you're talking about your money being recorded and what you do being recorded with online stuff and that, well, online betting turnover we see on horse racing is dropping like a stone in the UK, down 16% in 2 years. If you take inflation into account, it's down 25%. And they're linking it to the affordability checks that were introduced a couple of years ago. This is a bugbear for you, Johnny, is it? All about this?
It's just really alarming, that racing turnover, and you can say, well, it's based on the height of where it was at sort of in recent years post internet. Before 20 years ago when I got into it, everyone was in the betting shop, and then people started to open up accounts and all that. But basically it was in the betting shop and at the racetrack. Obviously now it's online, but the racing, I suppose the racing itself was relatively slow to react to these figures, which was like a week and a half ago. There's been very little about it in Ireland, which I find strange. Now, I did an interview with Willie Mullins for the Business Post yesterday, and he said, I said, what are your worries in terms of racing going forward? And he said funding. And the funding of racing in Ireland is absolutely linked to turnover in Britain. And turnover has gone way back. Like, if you're looking at, it's not necessarily fair to say everything is index linked, because my wages never ever seem to go up. I mean, I'm getting paid the exact same all the time, even though I'm paying double what I was paying for a coffee like 10 years ago. So not everything is index linked, but if you do make it index linked, and there is a bit of a funding crisis in Britain, like betting on horse racing is just so limited in terms of importance to the bookmaker compared to where it was at. And you're well old enough, Vinny, to remember where all bookmakers took on in terms of bets back in the day was literally 100% practically horse racing. The rest was irrelevant. We've now at a stage where I really do firmly believe this. If British racing and Irish racing collapsed in the morning, like Flutter just literally wouldn't bother it in the slightest. It just wouldn't, because that's not the model. And anecdotally, I'm hearing more so of bookmakers online. They want you betting on the casinos. They want you betting on all the mug stuff, the slots. Football betting is kind of basically stagnant. And so that's not necessarily grown either. Like, that's basically, these figures show that it's quite stagnant. But racing is way back. And I'm sorry now, but I'm very, very afraid that bookmakers are losing interest in taking bets on racing. They shut down accounts left, right, and centre. Obviously, the affordability checks then are a massive thing. I'm not sure. I feel the affordability checks are over the top. If a betting company wants to look at my bank account, I don't want to look at my own bank account, let alone a betting company. So though absolutely would not be letting a betting company into my bank account. And I can see why that's become a big issue. And ultimately, it's driving an awful lot of people into the black market. And anecdotally, I know so many mates have gone down that route where they're betting on WhatsApp that might as well never exist. And ultimately, racing going forward, because the race courses, the funding in Ireland is heavily linked now going forward to the betting on particular events at that given race course. And this is going to be, I'm told race courses are going to be under serious pressure in the next few years. But if we're not alarmed by an effective 25% drop in betting on horse racing, we really should be. And I'm really concerned where bookmakers are going with this, because for me, I don't think they have much interest in horse racing anymore.
Well, an interesting thing you hit on there now. This would be very different experience to me. You're saying you have a lot of friends you'd know who are betting with illegal bookmakers on the likes of WhatsApp and that. I personally would know a lot of bettors, and I don't know anyone who's betting illegally. So tell me a bit more about that, Johnny. Who are they betting with? What sort of people are these illegal bookmakers on WhatsApp?
Yeah, well, they're basically, they could be just bookmakers would say that, they could be at the racetrack themselves, or they could be, maybe these bookmakers can show you an ability that all these bets are recorded. But like, from my perspective, like, I've been shut down by everyone, and even the betting exchanges were becoming difficult for me as well. And I absolutely, like, I'm potentially, looking for a mortgage in the next few years. I don't want any betting on my bank account. So that means then you have to go through, say, PayPal, and you have to go through like other means. Or in fairness, you can kind of deposit cash in the shops, but I can't get on with any bookmaker for a long time. And that's not a badge of honor. That's just the way it is for so many people now. So with respect to these bookmakers, he or she will take a bet off me, and it's a kind of a credit system. So like, you know, a lot of the time there's no real money changing hands, and they'll take a good bet, but they might be laying on the show or something like that. I honestly, I don't ask them where that money goes, but it's much easier for me to do that than go down the route of messing with bookmakers who won't take my bets anymore. So that's and that's basically between affordability checks and restrictions. That's where I've been for a long time.
And what about you, Emma? Would you see any of that? Any of your friends would have bets in that sort of way?
Very, very, very small scale, maybe not to a massive degree, but I can imagine like what Johnny's explained there, that it's kind of something that's, you know, a lot of people in racing are experiencing, because the affordability checks, kind of like you said, like I don't think there's too many people who are kind of openly willing to give this like very personal information over to betting companies, and that's definitely linked to this massive downturn in the revenue. And you kind of wonder what is the bookmaker strategy with racing going forward, because you know they don't really seem to want people betting on racing. Like, you know, they're restricting people who are winning money or placing a certain types of bets. Like, do they only want these people who are throwing money at, you know, build a bet, football accumulators and casino betting is, and like that's worrying as well, because all these bookmakers kind of say, you know, where we all about, you know, affordable gambling and all this stuff, and then they only want people who are going to throw their money away on slot machines, not people who are going to kind of bet strategically, I suppose, on horse racing. It's kind of more of a skill, and definitely much more enjoyable way of punting. So yeah, I think the bookmakers have a bit to question about this, and yeah, I think the affordability checks definitely has had a massive effect on this, because it's something that I don't think too many people are willing to do, and yeah, it's going to have massive negative effects long term on racing, kind of like Johnny said.
Yeah, and Vinny, I've a lot of pipe dreams in my life. Like, one of them is to run a Sunday sports newspaper that, you know, will never happen. Another one was to set up a betting company that would actually like really just focus on racing, maybe only Irish racing, but really wanted to take bets on Irish racing, but get everyone that was involved in racing to try and bet with this company. Because, and the more you look at it now, with other like bookmakers going, they really are losing interest in racing. Surely there's a market for a bookmaker that will be really active on social media, will donate some money to charity every now and then, and will absolutely take opinions and really like create a kind of a lively an atmosphere around races. Because it's a sad thing that like opinion is gone on racing. There's no, like, bookmakers are not taking opinions at all anymore. They're copying each other left, right and centre. They're not taking any bets. They're laying pennies overnight. They let the market look after itself. And like the fact that opinion is gone, like, so that when you go to the race course, the betting ring is practically irrelevant now in terms of what's happening in the market, and it's all kind of happening close to the off online on the exchanges, and nobody really knows what's going on. Bookmakers don't take an opinion anymore, and for me that was a massive draw. Anti-post is dying as well, so I feel there is a market for a bookmaker that will lay a reasonable bet to everyone, and basically will get everyone back in. But people in the industry would say maybe that I'm being romantic about it, and that it's too difficult.
Yeah.
But I do feel bookmakers are losing interest left, right and centre in racing, not to mind Irish racing.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Tout could be the end solution to all of this, like we've seen in France and Australia and other jurisdictions, Hong Kong as well, another one we're going to get to in a minute. Anyway, moving on. Sales last week, I've never seen nothing like the numbers again. They're just bombing, aren't they? We had You Got To Me, won an Irish Oaks, won 290 grand for winning an Irish Oaks, yet sells for 4.8 million guineas. Believing, which won a Group 2 in the Curragh during the summer as well, the Sapphire Stakes, won 72 grand winning that, sells for 3 million guineas. What about this, Emma? Serious numbers they're paying for horses.
Oh, it's incredible, incredible, and it's like the kind of newcomers, I suppose, to this sphere of buying horses, like Ammo Racing, like relatively new to buying mares of this type, and like he seems to never really want to stop if he wants a mare. And another one, I think, is it John Stewart of Resolute Racing? He spent a fair few quid over the last week or so at Tattersalls and Arcana as well. Like the bidding is crazy. None of them seem to want to go down empty-handed, and like it's massively successful for the people going there with these horses. A massive result for Kevin Coleman as well. When he bought his filly over there, he got huge money for her after running in the maiden. Look, you'd be delighted for the vendors, I suppose, but you'd wonder when's the bubble going to burst. Like it kind of reminds you a little bit about, I'm not sure, did you read that horse trader book years ago, the Robert Sangster story, when Godolphin kind of came in and started bidding against Coolmore over in America, and all the Americans were making hay, and they kind of came to agreement eventually, I think, to stop this bidding war. And it's kind of what it feels like at the moment. Like none of these big players want to go down, and Ammo is just driving this market crazy, you'd have to say, like with the money he's willing to spend. And it's absolutely incredible. Like he seems to have, someone told me how much money he had spent in Tattersalls in total. God, I can't think of the figure off the top of my head, but I think it's north of 30 million anyway this year, which is incredible. It could be a lot more than that now as well. But yeah, it's how long is this going to go on for, I suppose? But it's brilliant for the people selling these horses, I suppose.
Like you could have a fair battle for the most mental price paid, Vinny, over the last sort of 2 months or so. And you're looking, Ammo Racing would be probably 5 of the top 10 maybe. But the price paid for the Palace Girl is one of the most bonkers things I've ever seen. And I've been fascinated by the Palace Girl because I remember meeting Kevin Coleman after. I think she had won a few days previously at the Curragh. She obviously second to Giselle first time out, but he got his hands on her before sort of Tamfana had really kicked off, and obviously she's a half sister to Tamfana, but she's by this German sire by Big Shuffle Arion. I know nothing about. It was like good horse in Germany, but like this is and was basically going in before Tamfana was, I think, half sister to Maiden Hurdler, right? Kevin Coleman gets the horse, meets Dev Manussi at the races, who's obviously trainer of Tamfana, and says, I have the half sister, do you want to buy it? And Dev Manussi goes, no, I want to wait for the horse to run first before I make a call on it. And Kevin Coleman, according to himself anyway, said to him, well, you won't be able to afford it after she runs. She finished the second first time out. That's a great run. 1.55 million guineas, like for finishing second in a maiden, like what? So Kevin, I mean, whatever you do in your life, you're making great waves as a trainer, but you will never ever get a result like this again. Incredible stuff, and congratulations to all involved. But Jesus Christ, that's like, what is she worth after her next run? Like 6 million?
That's it's just mad. That's just the kind of beauty of the flat game. Like we were talking about, like making no money on national hunt horses, but like imagine getting, like, that's nearly 2 million euros after, you know, obviously a very good run in a maiden, but like, can you imagine getting anything close to that for a national hunt horse, no matter what they did? Like Constitution Hill, would they get 2 million euro for him? They probably would, but like he's the best out there. And even another one, Lilac Rolla made a million guineas, I think, like, and she was bought for 40,000 euros a yearling. Like that's some return on profit in a relatively short space of time. Like 2 years is all it took to flip it over. Like it was incredible, and like it's like you'd wonder, like will more national hunt boys be kind of looking towards the flat? Like, 'cause some of the figures are just eye watering.
So JP probably robbed that Jonbon, did he, for 640 grand? Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Hong Kong at the weekend. We'd plenty of Irish runners. Maiden O'Brien, I think he'd 4 of them over there. But the big news was Romantic Warrior wins again, 3rd victory in the Hong Kong Cup. What's really interesting here is Mick Cannan bought that for the Hong Kong Jockey Club originally. 300k he paid for that in Tattersalls. It's now won 21 million euro. That's an astonishing success, isn't it? Irish bred horse as well, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, I was just I wasn't really familiar with this horse. Looked up Gelding by Acclamation, 6-year-old, and he's obviously won an extortionate amount of money. Sent off 1 to 10 the last twice, and like the money over there, like it's, in fairness, their prize money. I mean, it's becoming, Irish prize money is going to become a serious problem. I think there's going to be a real brain drain of horses from here because of our prize money in the flat. When you see like the money in the Middle East and that, but this is mad stuff. Like a 6-year-old Gelding by Acclamation, and fair play to Mick Cannan. That was some shout, but yeah, like madman stuff. And you know, the more you look at these races, the more it emphasizes where it's very, very hard for Irish owners to compete when basically, you know, you just sell the horse on, you compete for prize money like that.
Yeah, true. Now we'll move on to something else. Well, we got a few things first before we get into some of the racing from last weekend. We'd Fast or Slow out for the season. Got a soft tissue injury running in the John Durkin, which is very disappointing. Patrick Mullins, he's going to have a go at the UK Amateur title this season. Be the first ever to achieve it, not living in the country or resident there. Siobhan Rutledge, girl who's doing great stuff on the flat here, particularly on the all-weather as well. She's gone to Australia now for the winter. And then one that really caught my eye was Bryony Frost. Simon Munir and Isaac Swade brought her over to ride intense raffles on Saturday in Navan, the Irish Grand National winner, running over hurdles, right? Which was interesting that they'd bring her over because she rides for them in France and she's based in France now. But what I thought was really odd was you bring a jockey over from France, you would think they would ride all your horses at the weekend. She only rides the one horse of them. She didn't ride Jasmine DeVoe, which was the champion bumper winner who went over hurdles at the same meeting in Navan. And then on Sunday, they had 2 runners in the Hilly Way chase and she didn't ride either of them. What do you make of that, Emma?
Yeah, it was a strange thing, I suppose. Look, JJ and Daryl both out injured. I don't know. Maybe he was looking towards the future. Was it? I don't know. Like, if in case, like, for whatever reason, maybe the two lads weren't available again. I actually saw on social media she went down and schooled them all down in Tom Gibney. So maybe it was just that. I'd imagine Willie probably wouldn't like normally those number one jockeys, apart from Mark Walsh, don't generally ride Willie's number one horses anyway. So I'd say Paul was always going to ride Jasmine DeVoe, but. Yeah, it's strange. Maybe she didn't go to Cork. I don't know. Maybe there was big racing in France. I've no idea what was going on in France on Sunday, to be honest. Maybe she had to go back for that. But yeah, a quick trip over and back to Ireland for her. But yeah, interesting to see down the line does she get back on him. I was sickened to hear about Fast or Slow, to be honest. Like for Martin Brazil, like after running in the John Dorkin, like he was probably the big what if after the Gold Cup last year. He was unfortunate to unseat there, and you know he's beaten Galopin Des Champs a few times, and like probably in his prime at the moment, and it's just a sickener to miss a year with him. So he had plenty going on this week, I suppose. And Patrick Bonin's off the amateur title. That really kind of surprised me yesterday, to be honest. What surprised me the most was I was kind of thinking, who is the amateur in the UK? I had absolutely no idea. I could probably name one or two UK amateurs off the top of my head. And that fact you only need 15 winners to be the champion amateur in the UK, like it's a bit mad when you think how many amateur races there are on the track over there. I know professionals can ride in bumpers and stuff, but there's an awful lot of amateur flat races and hunter chases and all that. So 15 winners compared to I don't know how many you need here, but it's an awful lot more than that, I'd imagine.
The worst thing about it was, Vinny, though, was Anima was like fucking Patrick Mullins. You know, he's a very talented rider. He's a very talented man in many respects, a gentleman as well. And then he wins a journalist award. Like, I went to college for 4 years. Like, basically went to Dublin, wasted 4 years of my life doing this stupid degree, and basically studied for it all my life, and have been a journalist for what? Like, I'm looking at the time here now, but I've been a journalist for like 20, 25 years. Never within the NASA's Roar win it. And then Patrick has guest columns in the Race Bus, and now he's like the racing writer of the year as well. And that makes me wonder, like, you know, what have I done with my life? But like, he's such a talented lad. And I actually, with all joking aside, I actually love his articles. I think he's, you know, the racing media now, it's just getting thinner and thinner. Unfortunately, as we all know, newspapers are kind of going, and there aren't that many journalists anymore. But that was a brilliant achievement for Patrick. I think he's a really good writer. I know JJ Slevin did the journalism course himself. Maybe we'll do a bit down the line, but congratulations to Patrick on that. It could be a great year for him.
Yeah, man with too much talent, maybe. There you go. Interesting. The last one I can remember, an Irish lad who won that. I'm sure there's been plenty down the years, but I wouldn't be aware of them. But I remember Philip Fenton rode as an amateur in the UK, and he won that title. But I remember him coming home because he couldn't make a living out of it, because you don't get paid as an amateur in the UK. That's the difference.
Well, you technically don't get paid here either.
Technically, you don't. That's true. Anyway, the other thing, of course, with that is that Patrick, it'd be interesting to see, would he take any outside rides over there? I thought he had one there a week or two ago. Did he for Harry Durham? Was it he rode for?
Yeah, I think he said he wants to take a few outside rides. So I feel like if he's going over to the likes of Stratford and stuff, I'm sure he wouldn't mind filling up the card instead of going for one ride.
Yeah, true. Anyway, be interesting to follow his season and see how he gets on, because no doubt his father will be throwing a few over, because he's still looking to win that UK championship again for a second time. So last week we had some big names out. We Jonbon obviously won, and then we had Energumene, which was one I was particularly looking forward to. What did you make of that, Emma? You were down in Cork and all to see Energumene win the Hilly Way.
I was in Cork yesterday, and it was a brilliant day racing. Like, the whole card was kind of top to tail. It was really good stuff. It was brilliant to see the Keneally's having a nice winner in that grade tree as well. A man who only trains 3 horses, and to get out on top of the likes of Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott, it was a massive result. And you kind of often get those great local success down in Cork as well, and a good crowd down there, and a real racing crowd as well.
There was a great roar in him when he jumped the last. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah. Like, he really sprung the last, but there was a great roar. It was like the old days.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was, and it was. I wouldn't say an older crowd. It was kind of a mixed crowd, but like a proper, real racing crowd. Everyone was there to enjoy the race, and there was no kind of messing around or anything like that. And JP arrived in the chopper. Then I think he was there for the first race. He won the maiden hurdle, and the kind of word around was he came down to see Daniel Blue, so it's a bit of money floating around for her then as well. But she was beaten in the end. And Energumene, look, I suppose on figures, like, he could have been, I think, £15 or more below his best to win that race. And look, it's hard to say that he was at his very best, but I thought it was a massive performance after so long off the track. he's a monster of a horse. Like, to see him in person, he is just huge, and he's display jumping. Like, the whole race course was just buzzing after. I was inside in the bathroom washing my hands, and I was joining him, and a woman comes up behind me, and she was just obviously ecstatic from the race. She was just saying how much of a genius Willie Mullins was, and how she couldn't get over how well the horse jumped. And there was just great buzz down there, and I was really impressed by Energumene. Look, I know you can say maybe Banbridge. I don't think Banbridge would have beaten him. Maybe he would have run him a bit close, given him weight. But I thought it was a good performance after so long off. And yeah, it was a good day on Cork yesterday. Now, plenty of nice results.
And what about that 2 mile division, Johnny? What do you think? Energumene and Jonbon, where would your money be at this stage?
Yeah, I like, it's funny with Jonbon, when you pay all that money for a horse, a national hunt horse, like, you'll be very unlikely to get it back. But geez, Jonbon's been incredible. Like, and maybe he's not as good as, maybe he's not like one of the best 2 milers he's ever seen, and maybe his limitations at Cheltenham in particular can see manifest times. He's obviously a brother to Duvan. He's been, like, compared to Duvan, his longevity and toughness and the ability to keep racing has been really something else. He was very good on Saturday. He was, more than entitled to be Calixios and the likes of that. But Energumene, like, as Emma says, beautiful looking horse. The market surprised me that he was. You'd be reluctant enough to back him because he was going off 5-4. I mean, to beat Dino Blue, he's miles more ability than Dino Blue. I couldn't get over how short she was in the betting, but you were kind of worried. And Fernie Hollow coming back was weak enough. He seemed to be running sort of okay. It was a race, a lot of drama with Banbridge, obviously not entirely out of it at the last as well. Banbridge 16-1 as well. It was a bit of a mad market. But Energumene, it was a really polished performance, 10 going on 11. And it was interesting, Paul Townend saying afterwards that he feels like he's kind of stronger this year. But I just felt like the 2 mile chase division, if you can get them running against each other, it's pretty much the best there is as a natural hunt fan. And this kind of definitely whetted the appetite for it later on. I'd say nearly at the moment, like, Jonbon is nearly the one to hit at, but he's probably always vulnerable around Cheltenham. But it was a brilliant weekend to see the 2 milers back in action.
Yeah, can't believe Jonbon, he's after breaking through the £1 million barrier as well in prize money, Emma. Flying he is.
You've been keeping track of that for quite a while. JP's getting a return on his investment now. Maybe that's why he was able to take the chopper down to Mallow on Sunday.
That's probably it. Yeah, Jonbon's paying for the chopper now.
I see the Association of Irish Racecourse. I was reading the Phoenix. They ran their awards night in the Cashel Palace, which obviously is a pretty highbrow restaurant or highbrow hotel. But I don't know, like, how does anyone get invited to this? Can any old owner go along, or do you have to have actually, do you have to be one of the big shots?
Probably depends how much money you spent on Tattersalls the week before.
Anyway, we'll start to wrap it up with a horse to follow. I'm going to give you one first, talking about JP and his chopper. You Have Me in Stitches ran in Clonmel on Tuesday. Finished second to a nice horse of Willie's, a 4-year-old called Carafon. Stewart's brought this filly in, and Anya O'Connor had to explain her riding in it. Now, they noted her explanation in the end, but I think it's definitely one to follow. It had a run back in Limerick in April, nice run as well. Finished sixth the first day, finished second here. Full of running in the finish. It'll win soon, I'd imagine. What about you, Johnny? Have you one for me?
Well, I mean, I wasn't in Mallow. I'm there on Friday actually, but there will never be a more appropriate winner than in the last race, because Robbie Irwin, Robbie always an absolute gent. Robbie in the parade ring, he's kind of stock phrase is to introduce whoever has won the race as the one and only. So it's like the one and only Vinny Finegan, but the one and only won the last race at 8-1. I wish I was there to see that for Robbie. Great to see Robbie back. I think he had his knees done lately on that. Great to see him back in the parade ring. I'm going to put actually the juvenile winner up. Put Your Hands Together as well. I thought this was a nice performance because turn and finish had really solid form, and Put Your Hands Together. Say Vinny was like, he's a horse by Caravaggio who, mile and 2 horse. I like kind of mile and 2 horses who have a bit of pace in the flat, who make into hurdlers, because they have that bit of toe at the end of the races. But Caravaggio, I'm sure, has had very, very few hurdlers. I don't even know where Caravaggio's standing now. I think he's somewhere, like, he's well away from Ireland anyway. But I did like this performance, like yourself. I thought it was a good effort, so I'll put him up.
Yeah, I like those mile and a quarter ones off the flat myself, I have to say, going hurdling. Emma, what did caught your eye during the week?
A JP McManus horse who won a maiden hurdle at a big price on Saturday. Gorev Mahagut, Colin Murphy trained him. He's brother of Colin. Actually, I think I had nearly all the family. He had that lovely hurling who won a Wexford bumper, and Connor Harla, I think, landed a touch there one day for them as well. But he won the second division of that 4-year-old maiden hurdle in Navan. I was just really impressed by the way he did it. Like he was a big price, so I'd say they were maybe expecting him to be better for another day to come. He was a point-to-point winner, and he beat 2 horses from France, like who would have loads of experience running over hurdles and things like that. So I thought it was an impressive performance for, like, you know, a national hunt bred 4-year-old to beat two French horses who had the experience over him, and then he just travelled all over them. Like he jumped really straight, and I'd say maybe surprised them a little bit. I don't think he's any fancy entries for Christmas or anything like that, but definitely one to put in the tracker because I'd say he's not too bad.
Great stuff. Another JP one. He's got some ammunition, doesn't he? Everywhere you turn in this game at the minute. Anyway, look, that's it for this week. So make sure and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And do gamble responsibly and stick with the legal bookmakers. That's the key to it. All right. We'll see you all again next week. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.